Peace. In this build, I want to go over the original black man's plight and agenda. So I'm pretty knowledgeable about history and his story, in particular, black history. So 2025, we in a civilized society, and you hear a reoccurring thing about racism not existing for the most part, and I'm only speaking from my experience. So you hear racism doesn't exist no more, and you also hear racism still exists. Now, I'm speaking to black people in general, but any race of people could listen to this and take back some jewels and get some understanding from my perspective. And my perspective is experience, anecdotal perspective. So today you'll hear some black people speak about racism is over. There is no more racism per se. It's a class war, and how long are you going to use the racism trope? How long are you going to consistently blame America for your situation, right? Because it's a lot of opportunities. You have the internet, you have endless possibilities, so to speak, to gain some level of success. So the rebuttal is you, as a black person, are blaming the forefathers, white people, for your lack of success when the availability of the access to be successful is at your fingertips, literally, right? So, right, that's one perspective. And then another perspective is there still is racism, you know, your color of your skin. If you in a certain area and it's predominantly white, they don't want you there. Or you go into a store and you're being looked at and you're asked questions. So as black people, that would be labeled as being, it was a racist establishment. They were profiling. They don't know if I'm a millionaire, if I'm not, if I can afford what's in here or not. But the energy is the owners don't want you in there, right? And so typically the pushback on that from black people is that they racist, that's why. It's a white establishment, you know, and then it goes back to slavery, and black people are considered less than citizens, less than human, right? That's another perspective. And I'm keeping everything high level. I'm not going to drill down real deep and get into super specifics of dates and times and things of that nature. You have to do your own research on that. So you got those two perspectives. I personally understand both perspectives. Never like to be a victim though, right? Don't want a handout. Don't want to bitch and moan about somebody doing something for me, right? And so the answer to that would be, you know, do for self. Marcus Garvey, Elijah Muhammad, do for self. You know, pool your resources amongst black people, right? Spend a dollar within the black community and recycle that dollar, and as a whole, we will come up, right? So that is a way to stop relying on anybody else to help you grow in your financial stature as a black community as a whole. So also, and I'm going to keep going back and forth with the contradictories, the dichotomy, what can rebuttal one side of the story or the other. So the other side would be, well, it's redlining. You can't get a permit to go here. You know, you're not welcome in this community. And what would happen is that agency, and I'm just going to use agency, won't let you buy property there. They won't let you open a business there because they don't want you there. So again, black people will call that being racist, whereas somebody that would say it's not racist may say that, well, that agency has a valid reason, right? Maybe your credit isn't up to par, or they will make up a reason that's justifiable, you know, on a contract, or that's written down that will prohibit you from buying that property or opening a business in that particular neighborhood where it's 1% of black people, if that, right? So we know redlining, right? So we know that redlining was put in place to prohibit black people from moving in certain areas, and supposedly it don't exist anymore. I would say, like, to think that does not exist would be naive. Now, does it exist as much as it did back in the 60s? I don't know for sure. Probably not. But even if it still exists, that would be a problem. Also, you get black people that say that you can't let one or two bad apples dictate that the whole apple tree is bad. You know, you judge people off their actions and their merits, and if you get a couple of people that's quote unquote racist, that don't mean the whole is racist. The rebuttal for that would be the history of black people and racism and being mistreated and being treated as less than a human being. It's difficult to forget about all the experiences that took place. So we're not going to go 400 years. We're going to go about just like 100 years back, you know, maybe the late 1880, 1890, something to that effect. Right? So you got that as well, that it's hard to separate what we know that took place as if remnants of that racism, that thought pattern still doesn't exist, right? Now, I also am big on accountability, and like I said a second ago, like not being a victim. You don't want to be a victim, nor do you want handouts. So black people, and this is my own perspective, black people have an issue unifying as a whole, right? So if you are a Christian typically doesn't work well with a Muslim, right? And if you into Yoruba or some of those African spiritualities, then that might won't jive with the Muslim or the Christian. So right then you have division amongst the black people because you can't get over the religious ideology to come together. So I would say that's a self-inflicted wound. Also, that comes from the indoctrination about making us not believe that we are all one, black people, right? So the division was planted, right? If you know the Willie Lynch letter, some people say it was fake, some people say it was real. The point being, the Willie Lynch letter laid a blueprint of what is actually taking place. So not to be a victim, right? You say like, well, today, a plethora of opportunities to gain a level of wealth, a level of success. But black people, some is burnt out. They're looking for a handout. They constantly go back to the white man did this, the white man did that, slavery, so on and so forth. So for me, that would be the plight. You absolutely need to know your history. You have to know your history. You have to know the roadblocks that were set up. You have to know how the division amongst black people was created and made and broke everything apart. And as I'm saying this, I can hear somebody saying that, well, you also know that Africans helped the Europeans enslave black slaves too, and it was some slave owners that was in America was black and blah blah blah. I would say we talking about a small minority, right? Because there was opportunistic people all throughout time, regardless if you was black or whatever the case may be, right? That's a minority that did that. That's a minority. The majority caught the short end of the stick. Also, you go into, everybody had slaves, right? The Europeans had slaves, Egyptians had slaves, African had slaves, the Vikings, the Romans, everybody had slaves. Right, cool. Everybody absolutely had slaves, but the slavery was did different. Nothing was chattel slavery. I repeat that. Nothing was chattel slavery. That's where you need to do your due diligence, even if you care. Because when I hear people talk like that, clearly they don't understand. Black people are the only people that don't know who they are in terms of the last name, what their spirituality was, right? They literally got taken away from whatever their origin, their grassroots were. And of course, you're going to get some people that be like, my ancestors were born here and I'm black. Okay, right. I'm not saying the whole. That would be the minority, right? Okay, that's just like it's a small minority that's filthy rich right now of black people. Okay, that's not the whole. And even with all of this opportunity right now that black people potentially have to be successful and to gain a level of wealth, right now, people, black people in general, are less financially sound than what they were in the 20s, I think the 30s. So when you go from 100 years ago with all the opportunity, how can you be in a worse financial situation as a whole black community than what you were 100 years ago? Right? So you may be thinking, so you blaming the white man for that? Blaming, I don't like to use the word blaming because it's a victim type word. However, it stems from the mindset, the seed that was put in the minds to have black people don't think of unity and don't think of themselves as important. Don't see themselves from a line of original people that created civilization. Don't see themselves as coming from royalty. Right? And again, I know, right? It's like, you niggas is broke, nigga. So what? It don't matter. Everybody is not kings and queens. You niggas is burnt out. Y'all live foul. You know, you have no push. You have a slave mindset, right? And that would be the victim mindset. So again, the plight is having the tough conversations about knowing your history. And it's not just about knowing about slavery, you know, about the negative aspects of history, about how we were treated and getting taken away from our original way of life. You have to know that, and you also have to know that your lineage is from royalty. And when I say royalty, I'm basically meaning you come from a culture that valued unity, that valued the earth, that valued man, woman, and child, that valued work, that built up things with their hands and created civilizations in harmony, right? You come from that. Now, if you lose that and you get indoctrinated over decade after decade over decade, then you will be nameless and you will operate nameless. And when I say nameless, I mean that you don't know who you are. You don't know your lineage. So you don't know who you are. That's a tough conversation in the plight. Now the agenda would be, don't be a victim. So once you know the history, you don't repeat it. You know what the obstacles are. You know what was laid down on how you should come out. Right? You know that it's stacked against you. But if some people can win, you absolutely can win. And it's not about being racist. I'm not even there. I'm not doing nothing with no victims. But you know your history. You have to perform and act like you know. And you don't repeat the history. You don't propagate to tear your fellow man, your fellow woman down, right? Even though that's difficult within itself, because when you're dealing with ignorant ass people, the challenge is you don't want to be involved with none of that nonsense. And a lot of times coming up out of these areas, it's a whole lot of nonsense, and you sound like a damn fool when you speak like how I'm speaking right now. But that is the agenda. The agenda is to get your own. The agenda is to follow Marcus Garvey, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, right? To do for self, to build. And once you start building from a place of sincerity, of drive, of ambition, that magnetism will draw like-minded individuals to you, and you will start to build. I personally think that it's not enough time for this generation right here. It's absolutely not enough time. However, you can lay down jewels and seeds. So if it's 100 people that build, to the next generation, hopefully we can get 1,000 that build. Next one after that, maybe 10,000 that build. Because what took place was over hundreds of years. So to counteract that hundreds of years of negativity, you have to build kind of in the same fashion where it'll take a couple of hundred of years to get out of that hole. That's the agenda. You're not a victim. Just as you'll look back and see that your lineage is from royalty and from geniuses, kings and queens and people that have humility and build civilizations, you have to adopt that same mindset and do that right now to the best of your ability. Now, maybe it's just going to be in your household. Maybe it's to be somebody that you're talking to that you spark. But it's a start. A victim would be, it's too late, we can't do nothing, government give me a handout. It's the white man, the white man, and the white man. We're not doing that. We know the history. No more blaming, no more pointing the finger. Build, build, build. That's it. It's no more victims, man. We don't want no handouts. Is it going to be easy? No, it's not going to be easy. If it was easy, it would have already been done. It's not easy. So one of the things that we're doing, we're breaking the mindset. We're taking the shackles off and we're breaking the mindset. And then you're acting upon it. And then you're going to come across people that you're trying to drop gems to that's not going to be receptive. Nigga, fuck you. Where that sack at, right? They're going to be on some other, right? We cannot waste time with people that don't want to build and move forward. Don't waste your time. And as you get into the habit and practice of building and attracting people, like-minded people to you, you'll be able to weed out through the bullshit, right? So again, this is the original black man's plight and agenda. Quick build. I'm giving you the thoughts that I was having. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on it. Again, I didn't go too deep. I didn't hit no dates. I didn't give you no books to reference. I didn't give you all of that. But know your history, right? We're not a victim. We're not blaming. It is what it is. It happened. We understand it. Now act upon what you know and don't repeat history. That's how you build. That's the build, man. Peace.